There is hope on the other side without your cheating partner. I've never posted my story in detail on here, but I'm hoping that maybe someone comes across it and gives them some hope that life goes on, as this sub has been invaluable to me. I caught my wife of 15 years cheating this past year. It was the second time she had cheated on me in 5 years. After the first time, we reconciled after she begged me to stay, and the marriage had a 2-ish-year honeymoon phase where it felt like we were totally in love once again. However, she went back into her pattern of leaving herself available to any guy that shows even the slightest interest in her. Her affair this year detailed her flying a man she was talking to on the internet to a conference she was attending in another state, which I found out about. Immediately in the aftermath, she indicated that the affair was over and that she wanted me to stay with her. We have 2 children, but I was torn as it had become clear this was a pattern, a cycle that could not be broken. In the month following that D-Day, I attempted to talk to her about the affair and my frustration with the whole situation. She responded with only gaslighting and blame shifting. Still, after a month, I told her that I agreed with her, that we needed to save our marriage. She, however, responded this time with, "I can't make that decision with you right now." I spiraled. How could this woman who had cheated on me and then indicated she wanted to stay with me put me through this? Over the course of another month, I did my best to save our marriage, but she still didn't want to consider counseling or talk through our issues. It was one of the most depressive months of my entire life. I began talking with some friends and family about the situation, and their response was universally, "What on earth are you doing? Why are you trying to save a marriage that essentially has no hope?" As I spoke with them, I noticed a shift in myself. That I started to change from "I only want this woman" to "you can find happiness without her," from "what about my kids?" to "your kids will do better in an environment where you are happy than one with such an imbalance between the 2 parents. One night, it shot through me like a lightning bolt. You need to ask for a divorce. I walked into our bedroom, where she was watching TV, and I said, "I want a divorce." She responded with, "Well, if that's what you want. I do want that." I was terrified I would regret my decision in the days following and come back to her on my knees pleading to save our marriage. But I didn't. Instead, what followed was actually a very amicable and agreeable split. Funny enough, our relationship near the end of our marriage was probably one of the best points in our marriage. I think it's because I just didn't care anymore. I didn't care how she felt about me as a partner. I wasn't going to let her determine my happiness anymore. In all, I kept the house because she couldn't afford it, but she found an apartment nearby. We agreed on literally everything in our divorce, so we were able to do a dissolution of our marriage, so we didn't have to do a knockdown drag-out fight over every little thing. We have 50-50 custody of our children. I'll give people going through this or possibly about to go through this some advice. If you can, and you live in a state where you can do a dissolution versus a contested divorce, do it. Absolutely talk to an attorney, but there's a lot of advice on here to get down in the muck and do a knockdown, drag out. But if you can come to a satisfying agreement between the parties, you need to do it. That said, always keep an attorney in your back pocket. Don't be afraid, if you feel like your partner is being unfair, or there's an issue that you can't budge on, to use divorce to make sure you get what you want. But I can say, don't let the emotions of the affair feel like you need to use divorce to get revenge when you can likely come out much better on the other side if the process is amicable. I have started dating again, and I've actually met a woman that I really like. She is also someone who divorced due to an affair against her about 6 years ago. But most of all, there's no C with her. She and I share love languages and can be open and honest without the C that fed my marriage for so long. We're taking it one day at a time together, but this is the best I've felt about myself in a very long time. My kids have adjusted to the situation, and what I was terrified most about, that my kids would never adapt or feel resentful, are in fact thriving. Kids are way more adaptable than we give them credit for. But I'm just happy. I'm truly happy, in a way I haven't felt. I make time for myself. I'm getting to travel more. I see my friends more often than I did when I was married. I get to make decisions for myself again. I've seen a counselor just to talk about this trauma in my life, and she has made me feel better. That I wasn't crazy. That I experienced gaslighting for so long that it's remarkable I could push through it. It may seem like you're in depths of despair in the aftermath of an affair. Believe me, I know it. It may even seem more depressing when you have to come to terms with your marriage ending. But happiness exists on the other side. But you have to let go. You have to take your life back. And once you make that decision, you have to put that part of you in a box, take inventory, and move on. Your ex-partner is now in a relationship with her old affair partner? Who cares? That's not your life anymore. Your ex-partner is broken, likely irreparably, and they aren't going to change, and you can't let their brokenness affect your happiness anymore. They can go be broken, but not on your watch, and not in your emotions and your heart. Happiness is out there, and you may not find it immediately, but you can prune back the dead leaves and relieve yourself of the dead weight that's dragging you down. Because happiness you might find in a broken relationship with a broken person is just dead weight, and is likely temporary and will always keep you from achieving fulfillment. Take care of yourself, friends. Hope and happiness are out there. Update 1. Sometimes I have to laugh at how they are all the same. It really is remarkable how similar the stories on here are, aren't they? I realize we all have our own experiences, and our reactions to the experiences are different and valid. But it's incredible just how exhaustingly formulaic these people can be. This is especially true if the cheater focused early on via a texting relationship. The cheater finds someone that they swear they are just friends with, almost always of the opposite sex. The text threads are just always the same. One of them drops a touch of an innuendo here or there, just testing the waters, because heaven forbid you just effing converse with someone instead of having to check to see if maybe there's some mutual sexual tension. After a while the innuendo becomes joking between them. Of course, a normal person in a committed relationship would have told the other person to F off, but we're not dealing with normal people here. Then the innuendo and joking turns to less joking and more actual digital flirting. Then oops, here's a picture of me semi-bare, and then on to full bears later. Oh, but when you confront them, they say something to the effect of they are just a friend, but they are a friend that just really gets me. Any notion that perhaps something nefarious is afoot is met with gaslighting. When I was going round and round with my ex-wife and her multiple affairs, that almost always began via texting, I had the nerve to ask her, why don't you just effing stop? Like, what is it about your brain that either tells you to joke about sex with another man, or if the man jokes about it first, keeps you from telling him to F off? Anyways, reading through stories on here just helps affirm to me these are fundamentally broken people, who by and large subscribe to the Hollywood tropes of what cheating is like. Just something on my mind this morning, that cheaters can't even be original enough in their cheating and are also absolutely terrible at covering up their lies. Update 2. It's been a year. I realized it's been a year since my ex-spouse moved out of my house, and that this community helped me realize my marriage was overdue to her infidelity in late 2022. I figured you all deserve an update. TL. Doctor on the affair. Wife cheated on me in 2017, we reconciled, and then she did it again in 2022. It's been a year since she moved out and our divorce was finalized. First off, my relationship with her is fine. We share 2 children, so that part was never going to change. I couldn't just cut her out of my life, and I did want to make sure my kids didn't end up in therapy. Our relationship, I would call good. We can communicate fine, we are able to ask each other for child coverage during work trips, hiccups in the schedule, etc. We have 50-50 custody, but I do pay child support, but otherwise, my relationship with her is friendly but not a friendship. We live in Ohio and her affair partner this last time lived in Florida. Well, she continued this relationship and he left his child in Florida with his ex to buy a house with her about 3 miles from where I live. They bought their house in November 2023. He lost his job in December 2023. I do not know why, but he did, and he is, as of this posting, still unemployed. Let me be clear in saying that my ex cannot afford the house they purchased on her own. She makes about $56,000 per year and their house was $405,000. They took out a loan for $365,000. It's not my problem. It is, however, funny. Our friends have largely sided with me and alienated her, because I was direct about what happened. Her affair partner I have met. The first time I met, he wouldn't look at me, but I actually initiated it, and shook his hand and said, his name, my name, I know you very well from all the pictures and texts you sent, her name. Since then, any time I've seen him, he does not look at me. I love it. Second off, my kids are great. They seem to not have a major issue with the split, and do appreciate their time with each parent. However, when his kid comes to visit, he has to sleep in my daughter's room. She's 9, he's 4, and the first time they brought him up here, he was very scared and basically talked to my daughter all night. A note on this, literally he moved away in November. He came to Ohio in December, landed on a plane, and 2 hours later was put in a house he's never been in a bed he's never slept in, with a girl he's never met, and expected to be fine. My daughter prefers my house in this situation because she says she can actually go to sleep. Lastly, me, I'm thriving. I live in our marital house, because I could afford it and she couldn't, so I didn't have to move. She was also so effing eager to leave to the point where I got an excellent deal on the equity buyout, and literally got all the furniture and belongings except one couch, one TV, her vanity, and that's basically it. I met a wonderful person that is truly just a breath of fresh air. She is a divorcee whose spouse also cheated on her, so she understands what I've gone through and is also adamantly against cheating, or polyamory, or whatever. My kids have really come to love her. She's a wonderful human being and a beautiful soul. She loves to cook with me, I did literally all the housework when I was married, is motivated and driven, and she guided me through a very difficult time in my life because she had lived it. I hate that I pay child support, but was able to negotiate a significant portion out of our state guidelines, so it's not terrible. I hate that I don't see my kids half the time, but do appreciate the freedom that I get half the time. I've traveled more this past year than I have basically my entire life. I have many more vacations and getaways on my schedule. My recommendations to you: get therapy. I saw a therapist who helped me so much. I experienced so much. Is this my fault? I was cheated on, and she helped me understand how much it wasn't my fault. Do it. Even if you don't think you need it. Do it. Move on. Get on with your life. Even if you miss your ex, move on. It's time. Do whatever that means to you. If that means dating, great. If that means doing dumb C for a little bit, do it. Do the things that make you feel good. Take the trip you've always wanted to take. Go out with friends. Spend some money. Have a good time again. Don't run cover for them. Tell your friends why you broke up. Tell them about the affair. Tell them the details. Your ex doesn't get to control you anymore. Love yourself. You didn't cause them to cheat. Every single person has recourse if they are unhappy in a relationship. They can break up with you, they can divorce you, they don't have to cheat. They cheat because they are miserable humans, and if they do it once, they'll do it again. Have peace. That's my last bit of advice. Find peace with yourself and your life. However that might be. Be healthy. Be safe. Be smart. But find peace however it takes. Things do get better. They will get better, but you have to let it. You have to move on. And you will thrive again. Update 3. A tip for betrayed spouses. If you're coming in here seeking advice, you may get a lot of hire a lawyer or you should leave now advice that seems very cliché-y and overstated. Let me share with you something. You will never get better terms on a divorce settlement than when your WS is in the affair fog. And you should take advantage of it. Our waywards are deluded into thinking they've found their new ever after, and they often are so eager to leave their marriage to be with their AP that they will do very dumb things to get out of the relationship as soon as possible. Me personally, I kept the house, was able to get her to accept a lower home valuation, and therefore lower buyout, which saved at least $35,000, as well able to have us each keep our own retirements instead of a QDRO, which would have netted her at least another $40,000. I negotiated off child support to 30% under guidelines with no alimony. It is no doubt difficult to make this decision, but when you hear people telling you to take the leap, it means you can also have excellent financial benefits to doing so. There is no better fog than a fair fog. Look out for yourselves. Don't worry about them. Edited to add, if you're a smart person who does their research, you can also convince them to not hire an attorney and do the dissolution representing yourselves. As long as you come to agreements on everything, no attorneys have to be involved. I.e., no one will be smart enough to tell them they are getting the raw end of the deal. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Wife used Bumble BFF to find her soulmate behind my back. After months of lies, I exposed their affair during a dinner in front of everyone. Now she wants me back. My wife and I have been married for almost 15 years. We were high school sweethearts and each other's first partner. We were always told growing up that we had puppy love and it wasn't going to last as long as we thought it would. We started getting very serious about each other in high school, and our parents warned us against that. However, we didn't take any of their advice. We both got jobs and moved in with each other right after high school, and a year later we were getting married. Altogether, we have been together for 20 years. We did everything together. She was my best friend and I thought she was my soulmate. Over the years, we had 2 kids and we managed to buy our house and settle down into a nice little life. I worked in construction and eventually took on a bigger role in the company, so my wife didn't have to work. She stayed home and took care of the house and the kids, and we were completely fine with that. One of the only fortunate things about our relationship was that we were the only people we needed. Over the years, friends came and went, but we were always together. That didn't bother me because I was pretty introverted and didn't have the desire to go out with friends often. However, my wife was different. She wanted those friends and she wanted to have girls' nights and go drink wine and gossip at a friend's house. I knew she felt lonely sometimes, so I tried to make her feel loved as much as possible, but my company wasn't the same as the company of a good girlfriend. She saw a targeted ad for Bumble one day, and if you don't know, they have a friend feature. My wife told me about it and she downloaded it with me. She explicitly told me that she was downloading it so I wouldn't see the Bumble app on her phone and think she was cheating. We looked through some of the people who had accounts together and she started messaging some people. It was a lot of talking and virtual friendships at first, but then a couple of people wanted to get together in person. She went out with one woman a few times and they really clicked. I met her when my wife invited her over for dinner. She seemed nice and my wife got along with her well, but my wife wanted to have more than just one friend. She continued using the app to try to find some people to expand her friend group with. I wasn't pestering her about who she was talking to, because from what it looked like to me she only had women showing up on her page. I didn't realize that men showed up on it as well, they just didn't use the friend part of the app as often. My wife started talking to someone else on the app, and I assumed it was another woman. They were talking regularly and my wife was always happy to talk to them. She met them for coffee a few times and they went to run errands together around town while I was at work and the kids were at school. I never thought twice about it. They had a very gender-neutral name. For this, I'll call them John. Whenever my wife would tell me about him, I just assumed it was a woman. She never told me that it was a man because she knew I would have been uncomfortable with it. I only realized it was a man when she invited me to dinner with him. We got to the restaurant and he was already waiting for us at the table, and I thought that his partner was going to be coming out any minute and that was who my wife was talking about. But when I saw them together I immediately started worrying. They had a ton of jokes with each other, They seemed like they had a vast shared history together even though they only knew each other for a month and a half. They seemed to be a lot closer than I thought they were. They mentioned going places and doing things that I had no idea they did. It occurred to me that there was a lot my wife wasn't telling me about their relationship. When everything was over and we went home, I brought everything up to my wife. I told her that I had no idea that John was a guy and I didn't know if I was okay with a relationship. She got defensive and told me that I was controlling. I didn't want to come across that way, and I did see where she was coming from, but she wasn't seeing what I was seeing. It looked like they were both giddy to be around each other. My wife swore up and down that nothing happened between them, and they just meshed so well together that she didn't want to cut him off. I trusted my wife and I wanted her to be happy, so I just kept an eye on things. Looking back, she was having an emotional affair before anything else. I started to realize that she stopped coming to me about a lot of things and she was going to John about those things. She was complaining about me to him and getting things out of the relationship that she wasn't getting from me anymore. We stopped talking about a lot of things and eventually, we stopped having sex with each other. I think that was where their affair turned from emotional to physical. There were several weeks where it seemed like she was going to see John at least 3 times a week. She was spending far too much time with him. I was getting pretty fed up with behavior and it seemed like my wife just wasn't telling me the truth about everything they were doing. So, I went through her phone. I found dozens of messages between both of them where they were confessing their feelings for each other. Apparently, she was at his house and they got a little too tipsy and he kissed her. Initially, my wife told him that she was married and they couldn't see each other. He accepted that, then a day later my wife told him that she couldn't stop thinking about it. They both agreed to see where the relationship could go. From the way it sounded, they slept together the next time they saw each other. John told my wife that he thought he loved her, and my wife said the same thing. My wife was opposed to getting a divorce though, and she told him that. At least not until the kids were in college. John told her that he could wait. I was heartbroken and angry and I wanted to get revenge on both of them for lying to me and going behind my back. My gut instinct about them not being together was right and my wife made me feel guilty for thinking that anything could happen. I wanted to get back at her, badly. Before I found out what I did, my wife told me that John wanted to get together for dinner again. Knowing what I did about their affair, it rubbed me the wrong way that he wanted that. It seemed almost cruel that he would go out of his way to spend time with me. Because I wanted to humiliate them, I agreed to go. We got a babysitter for the night and we went out to a nice restaurant. John brought a date with him, which was surprising to me. My wife hadn't mentioned anything about him seeing anyone. It seemed new, but knowing what I did, I figured it was probably a farce. Dinner started nicely and everybody got to know each other better. I made sure I wasn't drinking anything because I wanted to be as level-headed as possible when the prime opportunity for me to send my piece came. The dining room at the restaurant was pretty crowded, and it was tame for the most part. We lived in a small town, so I even recognized some of the people there. Toward the middle of the meal, I decided I was going to stand up and give a toast. Everybody else at the table was a little taken aback by the gesture because it was a strange thing to do at a friendly gathering. I told John how happy I was that he met my wife. I knew that she wouldn't be alone when I left her. He awkwardly laughed and I turned to my wife to tell her that I knew exactly what was happening and there was no point in lying. By that point, the date that John brought was off-put by him and several other people in the dining room were watching as I finished my toast. My wife was quietly asking me to stop and tugging on my arm for me to sit down. I could tell she was embarrassed by what I was saying. When everything was over, I left the dining room and my wife followed behind me. She chastised me for embarrassing her in front of everybody in the restaurant, but I told her she'd humiliated me. She ended up telling me that she felt like she wasn't getting everything she wanted out of the relationship. She said she had been feeling that way for a while, and she wished that things could have been different. She even told me that if she could have done everything over again, she wouldn't have married me right out of high school. If I had known then what I know now, I would have done the exact same thing. Our parents were right to suggest we didn't get together so young. That didn't excuse the fact that she cheated on me. Never once in our relationship had I even considered that as an option. I told her that we would be getting a divorce and that was all there was to it. I didn't care if she wanted to stay together for the kids, I wanted to get one immediately. I figured it would be better to have them in separate households than one household with parents who couldn't stand each other. We ended up going through a divorce and my wife didn't get anything from me. We have joint custody of the kids, which I still stand by as being the best decision for us. It came to my attention that she tried blaming me for breaking up the family. My kids were angry with me at first. I didn't like knowing that she was lying to them, so I told them the truth. Their attitudes changed quickly after that. Our youngest never wants to visit with her anymore and I have to force them to go. About a year ago, my wife suggested that we try to work things out for the kids' sake. I saw through what she wanted right away. I think she missed being married and having the traditional familial household. She probably also didn't like that her kids hated her for what she did. I told her there was no way I would ever consider it. She and John tried staying together for a while after the divorce but it didn't work out. Honestly, I think they only liked each other because of the allure of a secret romance. The words about the affair traveled quickly in town, and I think that affected John's dating prospects too.